guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Werewolf ASMR. And today I will be reading you all book. This is the third book in a series called Welcome to the Underworld by Contemplate. I would read you the first book or the second, but I'm not sure where those books are, so we're going to start on the third. And I actually got into this series because of Jellybean Whisper. She did this a few years ago when the story was online before it got actually published into the series that it is now. Just really briefly, the story is set in, well, I forgot where it's set. I'm just kidding. It's set in Seoul, Korea, I think. It's been a few years since I actually read the first book, but it's about this girl who's a waitress, and she has this very ordinary life in the city. And then one day, while she's at the diner, she accidentally spills coffee on this man, and he basically blackmails her into becoming his assistant, or he would basically fire her and have the diner that she works at shut down. And so she agrees to become his assistant, but little did she know that he is actually one of the major crime lords in the criminal underground in Seoul. And then there's all these plot twists and stuff that you'll find out later in the book. But to sum up some of those plot twists, Cho Yori, the main character, has a very, very close resemblance to the queen of the underworld, who had died 5 years prior to the start of the book. And coincidentally, Yuri has amnesia and can't remember anything past 5 years. So this is going to be book 3, and it's called War of the Gods. Our world isn't a society where love conquers all. He remained quiet while he stood atop one of the tallest buildings in the city. His dark brown eyes watched as a young woman sped away in a silver taxicab. His eyes moved over to the King of Serpents. The infamous king stood quiet, dazed and broken. It looked like someone had just ripped the heart out of the underworld royal. A gust of wind rippled over the rooftop, blowing away the snow that once laid across the silent observer's hooded black jacket. His face was obscured by shadows. His only visible feature was a gold ring piercing on his lower lip and a scar of the number 57 that covered most of his left cheek. He balled his fist as he watched the taxicab disappear out of sight. Coldness seeped into his eyes. He extracted a silver flip phone from his pocket and dialed. As the phone rang, his eyes sprayed downward to the barefoot King of Serpents, sitting on the hood of a snow-covered car. He looked miserable, with his face buried into his hands. "What is this?" a female voice answered over the phone, snapping the man from his stupor. "She's alive," he whispered, getting right to the point. Who? Hatred saturated his voice. The Queen. A short, uncomfortable pause came over the line. That's impossible. She died in Tyson, in the fire. She died. No one could have survived the fire, we said. Somehow, she did survive, he stated firmly. His voice pulsed with scorn. And she's back in soul. Why? Why are you calling about this? She stuttered. Why aren't you going after her? The King of Serpents was with her. His eyes returned downward when he heard the sound of shattering glass. The Underworld King had punched his fist into the window of a parked car. Blood oozed from his clenched fists. He did not appear to be affected by the physical injury, but his face still reflected pain from a different source. Perhaps from the one who had just left him. There was a long pause on the other end at the mention of the King of Serpents. And he isn't anymore. The man withdrew his eyes from Wan Tai Hun. Just gather everyone, he said instead, absently running his fingers over his scar. The thirst for vengeance seared in his eyes. We have unfinished business to take care of. Apprehension, silence occupied the line. But boss, I'll personally deal with him, the man assured, cutting the woman off. His jaw clenched as he cast one final glance at Tai Hun. Right now, all that matters is making An Sujin pay for what she did 3 years ago. Alright, so that was kind of the prologue, I guess you would call it, of the book. And then this is going to be chapter 1. It is a cruel world. When faced with the adversities of life, most people turn to the likes of alcohol to take them into a world where the pain becomes numbed, non-existent. Always a firm believer in maintaining control, Choi Yori opted out of the get my ass drunk because my life sucks therapy and gravitated towards something healthier. In lieu of wallowing in a bar somewhere, Yori chose to immerse herself in a world where there were stories that were bigger than hers, stories that could con her reality and momentarily shield her from her problems. A local library proved key to this therapeutic endeavor. It had been 3 weeks since the altercation between herself and her former crime lord boss, Wan Tai Yun. After months of being together, she discovered that he purposefully sought her out, blackmailed her into becoming his assistant, and used her because of her resemblance to the queen of the underworld, An Sujin. Though it turned out that Yori was indeed the missing queen, who somehow acquired amnesia, it did not lessen the blow of the discovery. She had fallen for him, and hard. To find out that he had used her like a fool since the beginning was a difficult pill to swallow. Needless to say, the breakup was as volatile as an exploding car. Since the dispute, Yuri returned to her cramped apartment and did her best to get some resemblance of her life back. Regrettably, Tai Hun indeed made such an attempt difficult for Yori. Instead of disappearing from her life, he continued to make his presence known by ensuring that she was well taken care of. It was likely because of a guilty conscience, but he was not only made sure that her bank account was stocked with enough money to last her for years, he also sent over a messenger days later with the key to his black Mercedes convertible. Yori was initially too pissed to even look at the car. Once she calmed down, however, she rationalized that it was safer for her to be at the library late at night with her own car, as opposed to taking any public transportation. She may be stubborn and prideful, but she wasn't stupid. Aware of the dangers around her, she knew that having the car would decrease the amount of trouble she could find herself in. Though she had more than enough funds to purchase a brand new car, Yuri convinced herself that she should keep the Mercedes because she wanted to save money for emergencies. but deep down, she couldn't deny the warm feeling that came over her whenever she was in the car. She chose not to examine why she felt that way. She merely convinced herself that it was because she was in love with the car, not the precious owner. Yori made her peace with accepting Tai-hun's car, but adjusting to the other aspects of her life proved to be difficult. She hadn't realized how comfortable she had grown in Tai-hun's apartment until she started to feel like a stranger in her own. She also couldn't stop thinking about how her best friend was raped because of her, how she single-handedly killed 11 men, and how she found out about Tai-hun's betrayal. It didn't help that she had to be sent to a rehab facility. Her only saving grace was the library and the escape she found in the stories living there. In the midst of adjusting into her new life, her best friend, Lee Chae-young, was discharged from the hospital. When Yuri visited her, Chae-young's boyfriend, Jae-won, was there with her. Jae-won, who was in Tai-hun's gang and Han Soo-jin's former right-hand man, had been by his girlfriend's side since she had left the hospital. While Yori was able to refrain from having another guilt-stricken breakdown, it still tore her apart to be in Chae-young's company. As absurd as it sounded, she didn't feel worthy enough to breathe the same air as her best friend. Despite this torturous feeling, Yori didn't show it externally. And I'm going to stop there because I realized that there's probably a lot of spoilers happening. And also, my second ferret has woken up and is knocking things over. So I need to go clean that up. But if you guys are interested in more of the reading, I will do my best to find the first book and start off on that. But yeah, that's just a little glimpse of the third book. So until next time, my little werewolves,